Anyone here yet on the live? It's the weekend. I figured there might be some people on here. It's kind of late. Anyways, I'm Frater Saoshyant. I am trying to save the world. I'm not saying that I am the only Saoshyant. I'm trying to say that many people are, and many people should become a Saoshyant and try to save the world and heal the world and bring back a righteous way of living in alignment with Asha and the Mentis Mentis. What I mean by that, what I mean by Asha is like the will of God or Lord Wisdom. Try to live aligned with that and to bring the world into alignment with that. So we have that kind of order on the earth, which would be the righteous order, because it would be in line with the good creation of Hara Mazda. That's the goal, basically. One of the fresh Kredi, which is the freshening of the world, renovation of the world, perfection of the world. Oh, hi, Kylie Noel. You know anything about Zoroastrianism? Have you ever looked into it before? It's the original religion from the original prophet, Zarathustra. It's before the Abrahamic religions, before Judaism, before Christianity, and before Islam. Hi, Heron, Amen. Oh, nice, nice. So how'd you learn about it? Are you Zoroastrian? How'd you learn about it? What do you like about Zoroastrianism? Hi, Prince Zora. Seen in one of my other lives, you said you had a question or something. What was your question? I'm trying to save the world. Frater Saoshyant. Trying to get other people to work together to bring about the fresh Kredi, save the world. So I don't know if Kylie Noel's still there, but I was asking like what got you interested in Zoroastrianism? or if you are one, they respond to Orthodox ethnic Parsi or Iranians who try to discourage Western converts. It seems as if they don't know their religion too well. Yeah, thing with the Parsis is, I try to learn what I can from 'em, you know, listen to them, and as far as how they do things, their traditions, and everything. But they're a tribal group, so they're going to do things their tribal way among themselves. I've got the book "Argument for Acceptance" by Frater Saoshyant, and he says in there he thinks one of the things he mentioned about it is he thinks that they have trust, like certain trust in things, and like they believe that they were to bring in outsiders, then it could stretch them too thin. Sam Steven. Okay, so these guys, he don't have a picture of himself up, but he's hating on me. So yeah, he don't even have a picture of himself up there. Huh. Another one of these like little 180-pound victim weight guys that barely weigh more than an American female. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, anyways, back to what I was saying. The Parsis are like more like a tribal thing with Russians. It's more of a tribal thing to them. They took an oath to the king when they arrived in India that they wouldn't convert others, things like that. So they kind of consider they're keeping that oath, but I don't know. I mean, I think people in India would like them to reproduce or to grow in numbers and for there to be more of them, because they're beneficial to the people there. But I really don't know. Maybe that's what it's about. But also the book "Argument for Acceptance," like I was saying, that book says that they had trust and things like that, and like if they were to bring in outsiders, then it would stretch those trusts thin and things like that. I don't know. They have their traditions as a tribal group, so I'm not gonna say they're right or wrong with what they're doing. But yeah, Zoroastrianism. If you look at the Deno Kalamo, it says it's to be revealed to all humanity for everyone. It's not a tribal religion. It's something for everyone. So yeah. The question I've seen, I was asking that Kylie, questions about what she had to say, and I just see this like troll dude here, or whatever, Sam Steven. Can't really see his profile. He's trying to insult me, but I don't see any pictures of him. So he's so proud of himself. I don't know why he doesn't have a photo up. He's probably just some internet tough guy or something. Well, how tall are you, Sam Steven? How tall are you, man? Since you're such a splendid genetic thing or whatever, dude. He's calling me a pig, but I mean the boar. The boar is a Aryan warrior symbol. Vertragna. He manifests as a boar. Like the gladiators weren't skinny, scrawny little dudes either. So yeah. Uh-huh. I just find it unfortunate because British House says I just find it unfortunate because the religious texts are clearly pro conversion. It seems nowadays they just don't like Westerners, which is sad. Well, yeah. I mean, I can see like they wouldn't like about Western culture, really. And I can see like how the two cultures would clash. Really, there's a lot of things I don't like about Western culture. I don't like capitalism. I don't like the exploitation of people. And Western imperialism based on capitalism. I don't really like that. Now, I'm not saying like if you go back to like the Aryans and stuff, I can see like when they came out of the mountains and everything, and they settled and they kind of some people consider it to be like a domination thing or like an invasion, but I feel like they brought something. They became the aristocracy, the barbarians and the warriors and everything. They eventually seems like they became like knights and things like that. Like they actually protected the people, even though it might have started out as even more like an invasion thing originally. I mean, that as far as like the roots of Western culture as being this Promethean thing, that's like expansive, it's like moving and exploring and things like that. I'm talking about like that sense of it. I don't want that confused with like capitalism or some kind of like Ayn Rand extreme individualism type of thinking or something. You brought up as a Zoroastrian, you convert later on in life. I found out about Zoroastrianism first through this book called Wars of the Left Hand Path back in 2000. I believe it was like 1999 or 1997. I was around 17 or 18 years old, and I read about it briefly in there, and it talked about it in the Indo-Europeans and the Aryans. And later on, I found the book Original Magic, The Moslem Way, and Good Religion. And then I started looking into Avesta.org, doing the prayers and everything. I did all the research on the acoustic rituals, everything. I taught myself everything I could, and I rented other Zoroastrians online. And then I had my Navjo done. The priest came and did the Navjo for me. Had um, the urine from the sacred bull, the Vasaraj, had that, and the pomegranate leaves were taken it, and went through the ritual and everything. I got officially initiated into it. That's why I always wear my sigil and my kusti. But yeah, it would be considered conversion. Before that, I was into Celtic and Germanic paganism a lot, because of my ancestry. I have a lot of Northern Irish, but they have the R1B. They're descended from the Yamnoya steppe Aryans, and then if you look into the Scottish histories, they say that they came from the Scythians, and they even use that argument even against the British Crown, saying that they weren't originally from there. It was a way to try to assert their independence and everything. And then there's legends like Cuchulainn, that one warrior from Ulster. It says that a Scythian woman named Scathach taught him how to fight, and taught him all the means of like warfare and fighting and everything. So that's too another connection to Scythia. All right, Prince Yazor says, what almost stopped me from coming to know Mazda's truth was an Iranian here in the U.S. told me white people can't be Zoroastrian, and it just really hurt. But you showed me that God is for all. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I tried to get in touch with the Chicago Zoroastrians because I'm from Illinois, and I was looking forward to being able to go up there, check out the Gahan bars and be around the sacred fire and pray and meet with more of the community and everything. But I managed to talk with Chris Andy before on the phone. I was telling him I had his book and everything. One of the other people, I think it was Meta, I had talked to on the phone, and like he asked me like, my last name and everything. Of course, I didn't have a Persian last name. I don't know. That don't make sense that they wouldn't want, to let others join. I don't, because I mean, it's not like they're Parsis and Indian. It's this tribal thing. At that point, they're already in America, So I don't know why they would be that way about it. Maybe that kind of attitude carries over with some people over here. I don't know. But like I said, if they want to make the argument that someone has to be of Aryan's ancestry, well, Northern Irish, like there was literal giants, Northern Ireland. Like obviously they have that bloodline that goes back. Oh, I had to reconnect. I had some unexpected. Had to reconnect. Had some unexpected disturbance on here on my phone. Oh yeah, you're welcome again. Like I said, is your career centered around this, or is it more of a hobby for you? Oh, I do the prayers every day. I read all kinds of material extensively. I make videos on it. And Zoroastrianism to me shouldn't be like a career about profit. I'm not saying you couldn't apply those principles to some kind of business or like your way of life, some kind of professional, but I don't like the academic world. Honestly, I don't know if it's like the Celtic in me or what, but I never liked the educational system, like the whole Prussian system and all the conformity and how they try to mold you to just be a worker. Like Friedrich Nietzsche, I think he said it best. He said a master or a slave defines himself by a master. Like the whole slave morality thing just never was right with me. I never fit into that. Never relate to it. Manichaeism. I read a little bit about that. Wasn't that when they people were really starting to get frustrated with the Sasanians because weren't the aristocratic warriors and everything, they were hoarding a lot of the women and stuff, and there was starting to become a lot of poverty among the other classes, and weren't people really frustrated with the Sasanians due to that, and that kind of led to Manichaeism. They try to say that's kind of like the roots of some of the communist ideology, from what I read. Yeah. Going back to the Aryans, I was talking about the Aryans. Like, anyone ever looked into George Doomzil? He talks about actually the book I'm reading right now, that Zoroastrianism and Symbols. It's starting to bring him up, mentioning like correspondences between some of the Zoroastrian Gazatas and everything in comparison with the Vedic Aryan ones. But he was talking about how there's like pictures of like the gods as a triangle. You know, you have the upper ones which have to do with law, judgment, order. In the middle are like warriors, and the bottom are like the producers, or like it's like growth, warriors, and then the sovereign power at the top. You know, but it'd be the same with like actual human classes. And then if you think about too, anyone's familiar with Gurdjieff and his esoteric teaching, he talked about the three centers that corresponds to the three brains. Like there's emotional, instinctual, intellectual. Well, everyone has one of those parts of their brain more dominant. So naturally, people fall into some kind of caste like that, you know, just naturally. But the classes should have been interdependent. Like I was saying, like the Aryans grew into like an aristocracy of warriors, and then they protected the producers, and then you know, or they have the Brahmin, or they have like the king, and then they show them like the cause that's worth fighting for and everything. Kind of like being in line with Asha, basically. You know, like say if you're in the Iranian Empire, you fought for the Shahanshah. He had his elite armies and stuff, so it's kind of like those classes are like interdependent, work together, and I feel like it's the same with like the spiritual aspects of it. You know, it's like it should have never led to like class division and say one class exploiting the others. Like it should have been a mutual dependence upon these classes and those three like holy functions. You know, that's what I'm trying to say. And so I can see like Manichaeism like coming out of a frustration with like the subversion of those three holy functions in those three classes, because they should be working together, supporting each other rather than one. So what I think happened is you had the sacral royal bloodlines in these kings, like a true aristocratic warrior. They fought in front of their armies. They could have been a sacrifice at any time because they were always at battle for their people, things like that. So kind of a thankless path, really, but I mean that's how it was. So it's entirely different from like how they think of leadership or like kings today and things like that. Like all the kings now today, don't they have to be coronated by the Vatican or something? So they're basically like puppets of Rome, anyways. Like I feel like that's what Rome did. They tried to breed the warrior everyone and make everyone into these puppets of Rome, basically. Like that happened to a lot of the sacral kings that they try to get rid of. Some people call it dragon bloodlines, like the Scythian dragon kings and stuff like that. But I think that's what happened with that. And another thing, the merchants basically they could get their corrupt mercenaries, their warriors, to get rid of the sacral kingship, and they could put themselves on top. Like that's kind of how it is now. You have business people running everything, trying to run everything like a business instead of like based on Asha and the will of God. So it's not divine ancestry. It's it's not divine ancestry and divine blood. It's the God, the Christian God or whatever, saying this is the king. It's kingship from their God rather than the blood of the God. Like I think that's where like a big thing has went wrong with all this and low classism and everything. I don't know. I don't know as much about the Sasani, and because like I heard they had a bunch of infighting and stuff like that. I don't know if there was corruption, because I've wondered like the whole hidden hand, like the certain forces that we see that's destroying everything. Like were they using Christianity to tear down Rome at the same time they were using Islamic invasion to tear down the Sasanians? It could have been something like that for all I know. There's this guy Asha Logos on YouTube, and he goes into the history of the Scythians. He goes into the history of the Goths, and he went into the Greeks some. But when he did his video on Alexander the Great, he did go into the Persian Empire, and he was saying that at the time of Alexander the Accursed going into Rome, that at that time the merchants had pretty corrupted the society and everything, because they said that Darius was killed by people that weren't even of like noble blood or rank or anything, and technically, someone of that stature is not allowed to kill a king. And then Alexander the Cursor avenged him, and he went and found his killers and everything. So yeah, that kind of goes to show, like, by the time he was going in there, like, things had already been like really corrupted and stuff. Because Alexander the Cursor, even in his youth, they said he really admired Iran, and he tried to learn everything he could. Anytime like one of their courtiers or ambassadors came, he's all just so interested, trying to learn things about them. Let's see here. From what I understand, it's sort of like a old universalist religion made by a prophet named Mani, and it included Jesus, Zarathustra, and Buddha. I just found it interesting, and I admired its universalism. Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, from what I understand, it just grew out of kind of like resentment, like frustration with the Sasanians, because didn't they try to be more authoritarian and stuff because they felt that like the empire had been weakened due to like some of their religious tolerance, and plus they're probably dealing with the Christians too. Like they knew the Christians were tearing down Rome probably, and they're like, "Oh man, look what's going on here." So they probably tried to be like a little more authoritarian about everything. That was probably like where it went wrong too. Possibly, that's probably what happened, because usually Gurdjieff actually talks about that. He talked about the three forces, the active, passive, and neutral. And he says, like, if you're using force and you come up against something with force, eventually you become what you're fighting against. Kind of like when you see revolutions, they'll fail and they'll become exactly what they say they're fighting against. So talked about like the third force is neutral. Like you have to work with that energy, otherwise, force just comes up against force again. What he was saying, things like that, and I can definitely see the truth in that when it comes to a lot of things like revolution. Dude, I seen a video a while back. It was talking about the Manichaeism, how the communist ideology could have grew out of that. I mean, what I mean by communism is when the land and the factories belong to the people themselves, so there can't be some kind of centralized government or one class that has everything people need to live and exploiting them and making them wage slaves and getting them little crumbs here and there. Like whatever is collectively needed to thrive and survive and exist should be like collectively possessed. Then that's what I mean by when I say communism. That might have been where the Manichaeans were going with it, some of their ideology and stuff too. Though, like I said, the way they were frustrated with the Sasanians. But that combination of Jesus, Zarathustra, and Buddhism, that's kind of like that Baha'i, isn't it? Isn't there something around like that? I don't know if that grew out of Manichaeism or not. Have you ever run into a creator here on YouTube named Magus Asha? He's an older dude, and I used to watch it, but you seem more knowledgeable on legitimate Zoroastrian practice. Oh, you're talking about that guy Winston Head, I believe is his real name. I know you're talking about. I tried to reach out to him on Facebook and message him. I asked him actually before I went there now, Joe, if he knew any mobeds that did initiations and things, but I don't. I think he has more of the approach of just reading the Gathas and like a philosophical type look at it. I don't know how deeply he gets into like the spiritual discipline aspect of it. Like doing the Kusti ritual or the gauze and things like that. I don't know. I think he had a lot of a Christian background, so some of his approach to it, yeah, hippie, new age type, yeah. I see what you mean by that. I mean, possibly it could be. I don't know. I think a lot of people like that get into Zoroastrianism. They might have more of a. I don't know. Maybe some of them have a approach like that, because I've seen some people like the Christian pacifism and everything. They're like carrying that over into their Zoroastrianism or something, which I don't understand. Because I remember reading the Gathas and Zarathustra said there's evil people controlling the land, and we can't have the village of the cow or prosperity unless we take it back from them. I mean, isn't that what Zarathustra said? Like the earth needs to is crying out for a defender, and we can see it now today. Like, look at the government; they're defunding um, all kinds of prevention of parasites and things like that, which are harmonic. Now we have these screwworms in the cattle that are getting into the cattle and they're getting into people's pets and everything. But they're like, oh no, we'll just pray for them. We'll just think good thoughts and they'll stop being evil. I don't think so, man. Like they started the Persian Empire and they started to liberate people from slavery. Like, so I mean, like Frater Saoshyant, and we need to save the world. Like, I mean, sure, good thoughts, good words, good deeds help people. Try to build community and things like that. But at the same time, like this whole Christian pacifism thing, I don't like to see that people trying to carry that over into Zoroastrianism. Like Christians had what 2,000 years to make heaven on earth, and they definitely haven't done it. Well, how do you think that we could bring about fractional credit? Anyone out there? How could we bring about Asha on Earth? I mean, my view is that the best. I believe only like the producing class can do it because they're the ones that make everything happen. They do all the work. They make everything function and go about. Like all the people in power, political office, they're all just paid off. Whether it's Congress or whatever. Communism seems great in principle, but how do we prevent what happened to the USSR, now North Korea, or are these not true communism review? Well, that's state communism because it's a total monopoly. If it's a total monopoly by the state in the name of ending competition or trying to end monopolies, then it just becomes a total monopoly by the state. And you know what that means? That means the people that are high up in the state or in the state end up having all the power and all the control. But I mean, and what I was saying by communism is where like everything we need to live and thrive, everything that's needed collectively should be used and possessed collectively, like by the people and the productive people. Going back to those Aryan classes I was talking about. You have the producers, and then you have the warriors, then you have the sovereign power at the top. That'd be like kind of like the Greeks talk about the philosopher kings and things like that. Or the Vedic Aryans talk about the Brahmins. Yeah, I mean, if everyone in that society is armed and the people control everything, then they could just cut services off to a state or a government or anyone that's in power that's trying to create some kind of class that's above everyone else and exploit them. They could do that. That's how I see it. I mean, you remember during the scamdemic when a lot of business owners they started to resist everything, and they said, "Oh, we're going to keep our business going." They said, "Oh, we'll just shut your power off or your water off or whatever." And that's under capitalism, there. So I mean, if people took control of the power companies, or like the people can literally controlled everything for the people and the people's needs, and had an economics based on human needs and potential, then they could cut the services off. It'd be the other way around, like they cut services off to the people that are trying to control everyone's resources rather than that being done to them. If you wanted to look into communism in a non-authoritarian way or get like a better understanding of it, I would suggest the Russian prince Peter Kropotkin. He was a Russian prince, and he's seen growing up, the serfs and everything being abused, and he revolted against all that stuff. And he wrote a book called Mutual Aid: A Factor in Evolution, and it shows in nature among tribes and among tribes and animals, like how those that work together are the fittest for survival, rather than the social Darwinist view. That it's just this brutal competition, and we got to crush each other, and it's everyone for himself, and we have to get over on each other. Like he counters that, and he actually looks into nature to do it. And then he followed that up. He had another book called The Conquest of Bread, and he tries to outline how human needs can be met with an economy based on human needs and well-being for all, without government. He called it anarchist communism, is what he called it, because he was trying to say, by anarchism, we mean like voluntary association, no centralized authority, like everyone makes decisions together as a collective or as a group. I think Quakers do something like that. They call it consensus, like that's kind of an example of it. He talked about medieval communes and in mutual aid, and he was saying that they didn't use money or anything, but yeah, that would be a part of it, like to try to create a society where there's not a monetary system and more based on mutual exchange. Oh yeah, there's all kinds of wartime propaganda, like just about any ideology you study. You'd want to go to you want to go to source material and look into it yourself. Otherwise, you're going to get all kinds of yeah, all kinds of outside material and wartime propaganda and stuff like that. I was born in '82. Yeah, so I'm like an elder millennial, really. Yeah, yeah. Rural New York. Oh yeah, nice talking to you too. I'll going back to what I was saying as far as like bringing about fractional credit. I think like a general strike would be a good way to do that because then people could unite and have like a massive strike, and then they could take back all the good things in the land and the factories, all the means of life, production in the land, and use it for the people to have that village of the cow or the prosperity. 'Cause how can you have that whenever you have evil people that have everything that we need to live, and they're making everybody jump through these hoops, and, like basically pay to be slaves. They set up this economy where people have just enough money to pay bills, and that's it. And they're just like a lot of people are a flat tire away from being totally in debt or homelessness. Most people are going pretty bad. But yeah, the general strike, and then I think like community organizing, dual power movements. Has anyone ever looked at like the old school Black Panthers? Where they started to create programs to feed school kids before they went to school and things like that, and that actually caused the government to create the WIC program. They said it was under the intention to keep kids from being malnourished because they knew that would cause problems even further later on. But now they wanted to take all that stuff away. But that was actually kind of damage control because old school Black Panthers are doing that, so they kind of COINTELPRO'd and tried to take it and use it in their own way, in the sense of like WIC programs and things like that. But yeah, the system felt so threatened by that. They had those guys, pew pewed basically, and they tried to say they were aggressive, but actually all the holes were coming from the outside in, and then they had paid some spy to get one of the guys sleeping pills. That way he wasn't even able to defend himself. He was basically unconscious whenever they got him. So yeah, but I mean that goes to show the power of dual power movements. And what I mean by dual power is wherever the government fails to meet the needs of the people take direct action to meet the needs themselves. And in the process of people uniting around those needs and those issues and doing those things, it creates like a revolutionary spirit and organization, that people can build on upon around. And then they're basically creating a new world within the shell of the rotting, dying when it's already there. And practice, it rolls into that. I think another example is I've heard about people starting their own grocery stores, and basically everyone's volunteers working there, and I'm sure they make their money off of running the place, the employees and everything. But at the same time, there's like subscriptions. People can get whatever food they need based on a subscription each month. So it's like a nonprofit grocery store. Like, what if we started to organize all the services that people need around those principles, nonprofits, and making sure everybody gets what they need? I think that would be a really big start towards dual power, and that helps bring about the fresh out creating Asha. Like if people organize to grow food and produce the things we need and everything, and then you can make sure people are getting it in a way where they're not being taken advantage of and exploited and everything. So that's another example of how I think you could bring that about. I mean, it'd be interesting to see everybody work up with some kind of almost like a manifesto or some kind of concrete plan or some way that everybody could start working towards this. Like even if they're not Zoroastrian, I think a lot of people have a similar vision, really, regardless. But if we had something like that, then more people would look into Zoroastrianism, I'm sure, too, because they'd be like, oh, wow, there's actually a religion that already had all this stuff in mind and kind of had these aims and tried to overcome evil and slave drivers before. Yeah, that's what I was saying. General strikes, adult power movements, community organizing, things like that. I think that's a good way to work towards it. As far as like in a realistic, vital, concrete way, rather than the Christian thing has been going on 2,000 years. They're like, oh yeah, we'll just pray for the evil people in power, and they'll change their ways. I think everybody's starting to get it. That's not what's happening, and that's not what they're doing. If anything, what they got going on is bringing out the worst in a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of people that are drawing a line. They're like, man, I am not going to be on the side of the system. There's people that are totally opting out of the system, and they don't even. It's like a stoya that the yogis talk about, where they don't even want to be employed in a way that's going to hurt other people. So a lot of people are starting to get that attitude. People are just sort of tired of consumerism. They're tired of all of it. So I think like a line kind of is being drawn. Like eventually we're going to get to the point where it's so obvious who's on the side of evil and who wants to be on the side of good. That like it's just it's just going to fall in on itself. Maybe the whole system might, but they'll make sure they do it in a way that's going to hurt as many of the good people as they can, while they try to like hide out somewhere. I'm sure, and hope that we all go at each other's throats, even if like the whole system just does fall in on itself. Do you feel that the end days could be close, according to the Avesta and stuff? Oh, I remember reading some of that stuff. It was talking about, I mean, probably a clearer way to say it would be, oh, they talk about it in the Vedic Aryan lore. They talk about the Kali Yuga, and like everything is so reversed. They're talking about how people would start getting shorter and like sickly, like everything would start getting reversed and everything. I look around and I see that, like, especially with Gen Z, the way they drug them so much. I mean, they tried to do that to my generation. A lot of us, they started trying to drug us at age 8, but nowadays it's so much worse. Like with the food being contaminated, they start trying to drug up everybody, all that. Like, it's even worse now. Like, I feel like a lot of these people just have no chance, because if they can't run you through their Prussian school system and indoctrinate you and know that you're going to be their good little Prussian worker bot, then they're just going to try to drug you and destroy your DNA and destroy your mind and everything. So, yeah, yeah. I mean, I do see a lot of that, and it makes me afraid that like there's not much hope for like the younger generations. But at the same time, there's a lot of really smart people out there that are younger that see through all the lies and everything that's going on. So no matter what they do to them, I think that they're kind of seeing the truth. Like a lot of the attitude I had as a teenager, and I was looking around at people, I was like, man, I don't understand how people go along with this. Like, why do people go along with this lie? I guess Dredge is what it is. But now I see a lot of the younger generation, like they see through it all. So maybe that is like a sign of hope at the same time. In review and understanding the scriptures, will there be a real afterlife and peace, like something to look forward to and hope for? I mean, from my understanding, what we're doing now, it's still going to be a reflection of the actions that we take now, because they say that when you come to the Kinvot Bridge, there's your favorite, or there's the hound there, and then they say the Dana is there, manifest as like a beautiful female about the age of 14. Otherwise, it's an old hag that's like a reflection of your own soul. And then they say that's Brashnu is there, and the Dana. Well, there's three entities, right? They're there, and they say they weigh your. It's almost similar to in the Egyptian laws of Mot that you have to recite when you die, and then they say the dog is there, and then he'll weigh your heart with a feather of Mot. Well, they say there's the hound there, and the Zoroastrian Kinvot, and then the female is there, so that's kind of similar in a way. But if your good deeds outweigh the bad, then the bridge gets wider. Otherwise, it turns into like a razor and splits you in half. Like, I kind of think that reflects on like what we do here and now. Because you look at the Christians, they say, oh, just let people abuse you, go along with everything, keep your head down, don't stand up to injustice or anything, and then you'll get the pie in the sky when you die, or you'll get this wonderful afterlife. But Zoroastrianism, actually, is not like that. It's based on like what we do here and now. It's got a more heroic correct way of looking at the world. That's how I see it. But yeah, at the same time, there is a lot of like cowardice in the world, and a lot of people thought they could just go along with the system and let it go on forever like that. But I don't think even it can go on like that anymore. Much longer. And yeah, I think that the afterlife would be no different. I mean, everybody says what history repeats itself, and if people refuse to observe themselves and try to develop consciousness in a will conscious evolution type way, then things could only go in a circle over and over again. I think it'd be the same with the afterlife. If energy leaves the body, like if people don't try to evolve their consciousness, or if they don't try to observe themselves, then what else could it do other than just go in some kind of cycle or some kind of circle over and over again like that? Kind of how I see it, really. What they say, like the fresh credit, there'd be a molten metal, and then all the people that choose to be unrighteous, then they'll go through. But then they say the people that do try to be righteous and be in line with Ashal, they won't be hurt by the molten metal. And that sounds like an alchemical type of process, really, some kind of alchemy. I know Gurdjieff, he talked about something called the chief feature. And the strange thing about it is it's usually the thing that you like most about yourself, because you have the three hemispheres of the brain and one's dominant, and like that thing ends up, usually it's like a coping mechanism when you're growing up that makes one of those things more dominant, one of those parts of the brain, because you kind of have to just deal with your surroundings or whatever, and it can become like a blessing or a curse depending upon like how you learn to use it. It's either a hindrance or something that's going to help you. But yeah, I think Jesus said something in the Bible. Did he say he told the rich to go sell everything and give it to the poor? Like he's basically telling everyone, what you identify with the most is like what's keeping you actually back spiritually, and that's kind of the whole idea of the chief feature. Really, and yours, if you talk about false personality also as well, and like you can shed the false personality, basically is what he's saying, and it ties in with that stuff, like the whole idea of that. But yeah, I can see that. Like for me, for example, like on Enneagram personality types, I'm a personality type 5, which is the investigator with a 4-wing, and like that type can come off as like detached and everything, So like my type has to focus on what's stuff that makes me more capable or competent in the world, like stuff that keeps me grounded in my body, because I can end up in the mind, and then I could just keep running in circles of stuff and preparing rather than like taking action and stuff like that. So yeah, that's an example. That's the mind, like is something that like one of my strengths. At the same time, it could also be a hindrance, because if I'm not actively acting out ideas and stuff like that, like one way to integrate rather than disintegrate, like there's these lines that come across in your personality type, 2 of them. One is a level of integration and one's a level of disintegration. Mine crosses over to enthusiast when it disintegrates, and that's kind of all over the place, and the other one's the leader, which is the 8. So when I integrate, I cross over the leader. But if you're putting yourself in leadership positions and stuff like that, that's going to force you to act out your mental ideas and everything, and not to just be in the mind, and actually like get out and test them and do things. So yeah, that kind of shows like my process of integration. Do you think the Christian copied the idea of Zarathustra and created another copy of him within their religion that ended up being Jesus? I wonder that if there's like an inspiration. But I mean, even Buddha, didn't they say when he sat under the Bodhi tree, he was tempted and everything? That seemed to be inspired by Zarathustra. When Ahriman tried to basically get him to sell his soul, to have everything that the earth had to offer as far as like pleasure and power. And I kind of feel like that's how it works today. You see all these people in power, and like they're doing things, just unimaginable evil things that we're starting to learn about. Well, things like the Stein files, things like that. Like it sounds just like that. Like they make this deal, where they can be compromised, and they get to do like all these extremely evil things. And then when they get into those positions, that just brings like out the worst in them even more. Like if they're those kind of people that can be bought, or like they have the potential to have all that bad brought out of them, then they just bring it out as much as they can. And But Jesus, yeah, you can see that like the temptation of Jesus, where he's taken up to the mountain, and then the devil says, "Well, if you just bow down and worship me, you can have all this. I'll give you everything." I think it's kind of it definitely seems inspired by Ahriman, um, trying to get Zarathustra to go along with him, and like the corrupt, like the warriors that got excessive with the corrupt priests, and they were exploiting the people and everything. Kind of seems like it ties in with that too. Yeah, I see his. He's in my friends list on Facebook, and I've seen some of his talks. I don't really get on Instagram, so I don't really get to follow a lot of his videos. But I seen one of his talks he did for the California Zoroastrian Center. He went into all the brutal details on the Islamic conquest of Iran. You don't get to hear about that. A lot of it reminded me of what Charlemagne did to the Europeans. He did a similar thing to like the Germanic tribes and the European people. And then, those of you that know the Teutonic Knights, like the Europeans went through a similar thing, similar to what the Islamic conquest was done to Iran. But he went into all those details. I thought it was a pretty interesting video he did. I think, yeah, when I had my Najat done, and I had posted some of the videos, he congratulated me on it and everything. Be coming into Zoroastrianism. I've never met him personally. I'd like to go meet with the California Zoroastrians because they seem, more open minded and friendly than the ones in Houston. The Moabed that initiated me. He's from that area, so I'm sure I could meet with them. I could go down there and meet with them, and then the ones that it would be nice to meet the ones in California as well. I think they focus more. Don't they focus more on the Gothas and stuff, kind of like Winston, rather than the spiritual discipline stuff like the Kusti ritual and all that. I don't know if they emphasize that as much. Because I really like that, like the whole spiritual discipline thing of it. And doing the Kusti ritual and doing the gauze, and I like that. I think that's a really, to me, that's a really important thing. But I've always been into spiritual adept stuff, for a lot of my life. So maybe that just comes more naturally to me. Maybe it's my Enneagram personality type, I think. Like I like to go into things more in depth like that. I joined that. Actually, I was on TikTok talking with some other Zoroastrians, and they told me about that American Zoroastrian Society. They had the WhatsApp group, and I got into that. I don't. I believe he's in. Yeah, he's into that because he did videos with them. So I know he's on there. Uh, there's another Zoroastrian from California. I can't remember his name right now, but he's on there also. I know they do chats and things, and they'll do talks on the gatas and things like that. Yeah, and as unfortunate, the Chicago Zoroastrians aren't as open and friendly to people that that aren't Parsi, or from India. That's the closest Zoroastrian community to me. They're about 3 hours away. As far as other cities, like St. Louis is about an hour away from me, but I don't know if there's any Zoroastrians over there. Really? Oh man, yeah, I never seen that. I never seen him post any stuff like that. Huh? Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know. In California, I think that people they're probably more into the I don't know how to call it, what to call it exactly, like the ultra liberalism stuff and everything. And yeah, that is kind of frustrating to me because like I could see, like I understand, like when people say whiteness, like they're trying to talk about like a privilege or things like that. Like, but I mean, I don't. I'd rather just like totally bypass that and just say, class warfare. But because I feel like some of that stuff gets subverted, and they're trying to turn class war into a war against the YT people. Or especially the YT males. I feel like that goes on sometimes. Like the subversion of the left or the radical left. I have seen that. That does get frustrating. But I think some people are moving away from that kind of way of thinking because I've seen groups like you ever looking at uh, Black Lions Party actually. Yeah, they're starting to promote like the old school. Black Panthers did a solidarity among all the races that are working class. Get together and working towards things like the doll power and stuff like I was talking about. So I think some people are moving away from that, but then unfortunately, you see some of the black people still getting caught up into the nationalism and all that stuff like that. But maybe groups like that Black Lion Party will inspire people to go more for solidarity among the producing people or the working class, instead of everybody infighting over ethnic stuff. Really, I think it's foolish because you look at things like ICE and everything, and they're going after homeless people and immigrants and everything and putting them in those camps, and there's people coming up deceased due to all kinds of issues, and you see the criminalization of homelessness and things like that. And I think that eventually they'll start coming after all kinds of people and putting them in those places. There was that Red Scare before where they would deport anyone. Like, say, for example, say you're someone from Germany that came over here at the end of World War I because they were starving to death because they got, the war blamed on them and everything. You're a labor organizer, like say you're a German guy that became like a union organizer, they would try to charge you sedition and say you're collaborating with the Kaiser just because you were trying to organize for better conditions for workers. Because back then there were 18-hour workdays, and people had to fight for the 8-hour workday. They would blow a whistle at the end of 8 hours, and that's how we got the 8-hour workday. So that falls back on what I'm saying. Like if we collectively organize and decide to change something in society, then that's how it happens. Like, it's not like the evil people in power had some attack of conscience where they just decided to start helping people get what they need. The, the working class had to change it. In the town where I'm from, that song, "The Dying Miner," is actually based on the town I'm from because there were miners and they wrote the governor and they said, these are really dangerous conditions. Like, we might not even be around much longer, and mines and things collapsed on them. So it goes to show it's like the change doesn't come from above; it's going to come from the people themselves. I just hate how society seems to hate uppercase YT people as a younger guy. Yeah. I mean, I don't understand their resentment because when I was growing up, like I said, the town I'm from, the song "The Dying Miner" is based off of it. Like, I haven't seen that whiteness or like that special privilege. I never seen that growing up. I don't understand it. I don't know what that's like or where that's coming from, really. But I mean, the thing I suggest is that people, especially like the producing class, they stick together, and they go against, instead of being each other's throats and misdirection enemies. It seems like they'll push like a fake left and then a fake right, and then they get everybody at each other's throats over these petty side issues, and they go back and forth from extreme to extreme. They'll like make someone so sick of the other side and the other side that they react and they flip to the other side, and they just keep it going like that over and over again. But nothing ever changes. Like, look at the conservatives, for example. They said they would get rid of the LGBT people and all that stuff, and now they're starting to put immigrants in these camps and everything, but it hasn't made anyone's life any better. No one's got anything better economically, so like, it's like they get everybody at each other's throats on these petty side issues, like based on ethnicity or how someone's identifies with, like, sexually, and it's just like petty reformism that gets carried back to square one. It's not radical revolutionary changes. If you look into the etymology of the word radical, it's radix. It means to go through to the problem. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, change has to be done radically all at once on like all these levels. It can't just be like a little reform here, a little reform there. So I mean, we've seen what happened in the French Revolution. It was all lawyers and these middle class bourgeoisie type people, and they got it's kind of like parliamentary government. You know, you have the people right under the king, and they decided they wanted more. You know, and then once they got more, then they're just like screw the peasantry and screw everyone else. That's the same thing that happened in the French Revolution. You know, it's like they talked about freedom, equality, and brotherhood, but once they secured their property and they relieve their taxes, then it's all screw brotherhood. We're going to replace brotherhood with property now. You know, and that's kind of how it is here, even in America. Like when they founded America, they're trying to decide, well, who's going to govern this country, and they're like, oh, the owners. And who are the owners is like a small percentage, like 13% of the country. So what has really changed? Nothing's changed. You have these people that own the majority of everything, and they make all the decisions. And the peasantry are like the producing class. You know, they don't. They're just constantly getting more and more taken from them, squeezed out of them, and they're expected to work harder and harder for less and less. And it's not getting better for the next generation, and the next generation it's getting worse. You know, like I know my generation, generations after that, some of the first to say, "Oh man, we didn't have it better than the people that came before us." You know, I get calling on injustice, but it seems like it turns into exactly what you said. It turns into more racial division instead of real problem, which is class and not race. Oh yeah, you can see that with the extremely rich. They don't care about ethnicity. It's like money is the only thing they care about. You know, I mean, they'll take out their own people, even if they believe that that will get them more in the long run. I'm sure. You know, they don't have nothing against any of that. You know, I hear a lot of people talk about the Zionists. If you think about it, like if you look into some of their holidays, you know, you look at Hanukkah, for example, where they put the Hanukkah up in the window. Like that goes back to the Greeks and the Maccabees, and they said that they were becoming too much like the Greeks, and they were starting to take on their ideals of like the beauty of like youthful energy and things like that, and athleticism and all the other things. You know, the Greeks talked about things like that. Like they were becoming more like that, and so they decided they would wipe out all the people that had mixed with them a bunch, you know, and become like that, and then they start over and over again. It's like I'm starting to wonder if maybe that's what they'll do with Israel. They might decide to just, you know, take out the whole thing to get rid of the ones they want to get rid of, and then, you know, start over with their like extremely radicalized people that go along with the cultish thing they got going on, you know. So, yeah, it's kind of something in history. I mean, even with the Inquisition, I believe the people running it were actually those same people, and they were trying to run out people that wouldn't go along with what they were trying to do next. Like they wanted to go into the Netherlands, and there's people being stubborn staying behind, and so they used that, turn them out. I mean, even if we're talking about Germany or Hitler, they took the people they wanted to Israel, you know, with all their property and money, and they left behind the ones they didn't. So like, I feel like, yeah, like even when it comes to that, or you know, racial stuff, like they're not above like getting rid of their own or anyone, you know, when it comes to them getting what they want, the inner core of the ones that run everything, you know. If the working class moved past the distraction of ethnic divides in society, it could become a beautiful thing. Oh yeah, I mean, look at the Iranian Empire there on Shah. You know, they had people from all ethnicities working together, you know, to get rid of the slave drivers and get everyone united towards Asha, and then they wanted to make the paradise on earth with the agriculture and everything. That's what I'm talking about. Like, we could be doing like with those grocery stores. We could have our own grocery stores that are nonprofit, you know, and everybody just kind of pulls in together, and they have everything they need. Like if we started doing that, if we started getting all the services we needed and organizing around it, and basing them on human needs rather than enriching the you know who people at the top, then things would change probably pretty quickly. I mean, there might even be ways people could start not using their money as well. You know, people could start trading small silver like the Germanic tribes used to do. things like that. There might be ways people could do that. That way, they're not using their money either. You know, but I don't know. I think the Persian Empire tried to do that with the Darics. Is that what they're called? The gold coins, the ones that have the head of Shanshah with the big bow. But then you can see those coins got clipped. Like, so maybe that system could be messed up too. If people are like clipping parts of the coins off, then that would be a way for them to earn that currency as well. You know? Yeah. I think the whole push towards I feel like the people that are trying to subvert the radical left, they're trying to move it from class war to an ethnic war against the YT people, you know, and they're trying to lump them all together and act like they all have this like power or privilege, and that they're all benefiting from, you know, how corrupt everything is. Yeah, if we could move away from that, then yeah, that would be great. I don't know. I do see like a lot of people that push the extreme, like feminism and the militant homosexuality and the you know, the people that come more from like the black national stuff, like falling into that. And then when they all get going together, it's like, oh man, you can't even talk with them. There was one on a live that was talking about the Vikings and the gold, and I brought up, I was like, well, man, do you understand why they did that? Why they targeted churches and everything? It's because the Christian kings were and the Christians were moving into their lands, and they're saying, oh, well, you're not a Christian, so we can't do business with you, and you can't do business here. And kind of like how the Muslims would tax the Zoroastrians or the Aryans, you know, until eventually, like, they probably had to say they were Islamic or something, you know, just so they weren't being taxed to death. Well, the Christians did the same thing to the Europeans, and the Vikings was a response to that. And Charlemagne, because Charlemagne, well, if you know the story, like in Verdun, he went to the Anglo-Saxons and he got them inside of the hall because he knew they'd disarm in the hall, and that reflects on the Germanic mythology because where the blind god Hoder takes the mistletoe and he shoots Balder with it, you know, and then they were in the Vey, the holy place, right? So no one could retaliate, no one could fight back. Well, that's reflected in the hall, that spiritual idea. So Charlemagne, he got around the whole hall, and he got the Saxon nobles in there, and then he got them to disarm, and then he was able to behead them. They didn't renounce, you know, Odin or like their ancestral gods, because they say the Anglo-Saxon kings are directly descended from Wotan. But yeah, that's another example of that. You know? Yeah. Yeah, I'm agreeing. It's also true. Also, when I was saying the Vikings, like, yeah, they retaliated against that. They were being genocided by the Christians in the same way, like the Islamics did the conquest of Iran. You know, the way they did them, and they targeted the churches because, you know, they knew that those are like Charlemagne's dudes, and that's where they're hoarding all the stuff they stole from him and everything else, all the gold and all that stuff. So that's why they started to target the churches and everything. You know, it wasn't like they're all these dirty Vikings are coming in. They just want to take stuff from people and pillage and take all the stuff. It wasn't like that. It was a pushback, you know. And there's another example of that Kievan Rus prince Sviatoslav. He had a saying, "I come to you." Like, he wasn't going to sit on his hands. He's saying they go to them, or they came to him. And I looked into that a little bit. And the king, or not the Pope at the time of Charlemagne, was a Khazar, you know. And you know, people talk about the Khazarian mafia today, how a lot of the Israelis and stuff come from the Khazarians, you know. And the Pope, evidently, Charlemagne's time, was from that lineage. And you know, you see what Charlemagne was doing, trying to take over and genocide everyone. But yeah, he went to them and he defeated the Khazars. Maybe that's part of this whole like hatred towards the Ukrainians, how they seem to be wanting to wipe them out. And then, you know, I feel like Ukraine could end up being like this new Khazari, or like watered down, or it could be like their greater Israel or whatever. Like, they want to go back there. Like, say the whole Israel thing just gets out. It's like a plan B. Like, they'll go back to Ukraine or Khazaria, and then they'll just go there. You know what I'm saying? Like, say the whole thing is revealed that that's all just some kind of criminal network or something, the whole Zionist thing. then they could just do the Plan B thing with Kazari and all that. But yeah, maybe that goes back to Sviatoslav defeating the Khazars, because they'll make Ukrainians fight in the war, won't they? But if you claim to be of Jewish ancestry, then you don't have to fight in the war. So it seems like an ethnic cleansing of Ukrainians, and maybe it goes back to some kind of resentment towards Sviatoslav, because like he went to them and fought back, rather than sitting and waiting, which is kind of like the Viking thing, I was trying to emphasize and explain. Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised with the Plan B Ukraine thing in regards to the Zionist. Yeah. I heard they put some kind of black whaling wall there, and they should put a bunch of crystals in it. That's kind of weird, because like some people say that you can create these portals, with crystals and things like that. Pretty strange. And that one woman that was all involved with the Epstein stuff, that was into all the like kind of strange occult type parties or whatever. I think she gave them an idea for that. Or something. I can't remember her name right now. Like they say, Lady Gaga was in with her or whatever. Yeah, I can't remember her name, but you might know who I'm talking about. Well, how do you think we promote solidarity among people rather than them fighting over the ethnic stuff and everything? Because I think that's a way to work towards the fresh credit and the renovation and the freshening of the world. Is if people could stop fighting over all that stuff and then being put at each other's throats over all the petty side issue stuff that they push with like fake left and right that's controlled by the government anyways, That's definitely a big part of saving the world. Like I said, I'm Frater Saoshyant. I'm trying to save the world here. Need your help. that's definitely one aspect of it, They get us all fighting with each other. While they keep doing whatever they're doing. The harmonic thing. See the surveillance coming in, and they want to even get rid of cattle and other things. Like that's all harmonic what they're doing. And then the data centers are saying that could ruin the water, and that would just drive everybody off of the rural lands into the smart cities or whatever these camps they're setting up. With the whole ICE private army secret police thing that they seem to be getting going on under everyone's noses. Yeah, and I agree. And I think here in the U.S., as long as the two-party system remains, it seems it will always be the same, our team versus yours, and it will just continue. Has been unfortunately, yeah, like the whole political process is based on money, and both sides are funded by the same. So, yeah, no, the guy reached out to me one time. Actually, it was this Russian guy. He was into political science, and like he was telling me, he would help me start some kind of political party or something, because he said he liked America. A lot of the stuff you're talking about, he foreseen that stuff coming, and he knew it was coming. He was like, man, I would hate to see America just destroyed, because this country helped me and gave me opportunities and everything, and he didn't want to see that happen. But as far as like the political party thing, I wouldn't want to go that route, because it would end up being you'd have to have several different people for all the different positions. Otherwise, it'd be all on one person. Like if you were doing that, then they target you and they try to take like literally everything you have, and they'll come at you with like frivolous lawsuits and everything. So yeah, that's like not the way to go unless you're someone that was like born probably independently wealthy, and you have all this money, and then you already have so many people backing you and things like that. I don't think the whole political party thing would really work. It reminds me of that statement: "It's a big club and you ain't in it." Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, you think about it. Didn't they say George Bush and Obama were cousins, and they say that Trump and Hillary Clinton are cousins. Like it seems like they all go back to the British crown somehow. You know, and I think about all the Irish and Scottish people that fought in the Revolution against them because they already knew. You know, they had already experienced what it was like under them. You know, or maybe they came up with the Constitution and all that stuff, like the first wave of English that came over to America, you know, that were well off because they were, like I was talking about in the French Revolution, it was already people that had money and everything, and they were just wanting a little bit more than what the king was offering, you know. So, like, maybe all the rights and everything was just a sophistry to get the Scottish and Irish to fight against the British. It could be that too, you know. I don't know, but yeah, it seems like they're all related. If you think about it, when the Civil War happened, you know, they say that the Rothschilds, like, they got all that going and everything because they wanted to take over the monetary system. And they did that Federal Reserve Act in 1913. And ever since then, the money's been devalued and everybody's just gotten poorer and poorer, you know. But when they did that, they had that District of Columbia and they turned everybody into stocks basically through the all capital, you know, name where they have like a corporate fictitious entity that they attach to you and stuff. Then the Civil War, like they got rid of the Congress basically. So like we haven't had a real Congress since then. It's basically like we're under some military tribunal or occupation, and they changed certain aspects of the Constitution, and they turned us into British Crown corporations, like the corporation America, rather than like the actual America. Yeah, since then, that's how it's been. And they put these esquires, or like these people, they're related to the British Crown in power. Because they say even the courts and stuff, they're going off the Roman law and the maritime law rather than the Germanic common laws. And all the judges and the lawyers are British registered agents, basically. That's why they have to put in the written court because they're foreign agents and like they're trying to get you put in pleas and all that stuff so they can have jurisdiction, basically. So yeah, ever since and that also going back to them destroying the Congress. If only Congress can pass laws, that means all the laws since the Civil War are fake. It's all stuff it's not really real law, you know. So ever since the Civil War, yeah, it's like it's all been that way. It's all been the club thing. Yeah, that's wild. It wouldn't surprise me though, with all we know and about how the elites of the world. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the business people. I feel like they're more related and they're more connected than like the puppet monarchs that the Romans put in the first place ever were. You know, they're probably more connected than they ever were, even nowadays. Really, I think that's how it is. But the change ain't never gonna come from above, you know. I mean, back in the prophet Zarathustra's time, you got Vistaspa to help him. You know, maybe back in those days, um, you could find leaders, you know, that you could get to come over and with armies and stuff that could help. But I don't know what the chances are of that nowadays. Like some leader with some army is just gonna see the light and decide to fight for Asha and make a world, you know, aligned with the energies of the dimensions. Did something instead of reconnecting with the Epstein revelations that came from Epstein stuff. It has forever made me realize how evil the elite world is and how crazy it actually can be. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, if you come from a place, you know, where people are economically disadvantaged, you realize that a lot of that stuff was already going on. I mean, it's just more out in the open now. I mean, think for example, people talk about police all the time being involved with like all that stuff, the criminal stuff. And if you think about it, they take the biggest POS people and they make them their CIs and their snitches. And oftentimes, those are the people doing all the violent crime. And they're getting away with everything because they're rats, their CIs are informants. So I think that's how it works. Like on that lower level, you got the upper level with the wealthy people and they're doing all that. But then on the lower level, you have like police and everything else. And then their CIs and stuff. Like, who knows? They might have big parties where they get together and like pass each other's wives and children around, like some sick, twisted stuff like's going on with these elites. That might happen on this lower level with the police and all their snitches and everything else and all the criminal stuff they got going on. It's like on the smaller level, it's like a reflection of like the microcosm. Like you got the smaller level and then you got the higher level of it, but it's all the same, really, if you think about it. That's one way of seeing it. Yeah, it really is. That stuff in that files, and that stuff keeps coming out. But no, I remember back when they were talking about those one conspiracy people that were talking about like the underground cities and all the crazy stuff going on like that. I remember I made a post one day on Facebook. I was like, who would be surprised if it came out that like this stuff was actually going on and it was all true and like nobody even said anything. But then, yeah, when them files come out, come to find out all that stuff was really going on. Let's see what time it is. Anybody else got any other questions? Or it's like 12:15. I usually go to bed pretty early. Actually, I still got some training to do, martial arts training and stuff. And did weight training today, some Palavani and stuff. I wonder now, with modern technology and weaponry and overthrow of these evil powers, it's not practically impossible. And some people say even if they set up some kind of robot army or something like that, an EMP, something like that could come through and wipe it all out. I remember people talking about when the Muslims crossed the Gibraltar and they went up into Spain and France, and then eventually they fought back and started the Crusades against the Islamic invasions and stuff. But like the way they had stuff set up in Spain, it was so sophisticated, the water and everything, that they were able to go in there and just cut down some trees or something, and it like overthrew the whole system. So you think about it, like the more sophisticated the system becomes, at the same time, the more fragile it becomes. So yeah, like once they get all this digital stuff and everything in place, like if someone were to go against one part of it, it's kind of like a domino effect. Like I think like the more complicated they try to make their surveillance and control, like in actuality, the more fragile it's going to become. Like kind of like in the Matrix, the one guy stands up and the agent's all like, "Oh, why do you keep fighting? Why do you insist on keeping fighting?" He says, "Oh, because I choose to," But then once he stands up, then the whole thing can come down. I think that's still true in a sense. Like that could happen. Yeah, it is really. Yeah, they think they'll have everybody locked down. They think they'll have everything like that, but humans are really smart. Like the more they want to think everything's technological, they forget the spiritual aspect to it at the same time. I mean, if there are some kind of aliens or something like that, I guarantee you they're not relying upon physical technology. They're able to do everything on a spiritual level, and they say that they can take just one human cell and they can store so much data on it, so like really, really, if you think about it, like the spiritual aspect, like they can't trump the spiritual aspect of it all just with technology. I don't think they'll ever be able to do that, like as much as they want to, or they can try to do it. Like they want to, I just like Armon, he wants to destroy all of the good creation, all organic life. I feel like that's what they want to do. They want to try to turn us into some kind of cyborg robot thing. But I mean, they can't ever truly destroy the spirit of humanity. I don't believe they can truly do that. There's a guy, Kinrola, man. I got these pyramids. He calls them like Ormacite pyramids, and I got them in the car to block out EMF. I keep around my house. They help you sleep better and everything. But he was saying that our DNA, it has like an etheric aspect to it, kind of like an antenna. And if you take Ormus and stuff like that, it can reset it and heal your DNA. And he said you can bring seeds back to the hirelings. So that goes to show, like, no matter what they do to our physical bodies, like we have this etheric aspect of our DNA that's spiritual that can always be tapped into, I don't think they can ever fully destroy that on that level. I mean, he gave another example. He talked about this one Russian guy that created a pyramid. It wasn't even made out of stone, and people were able to be healed in it because it put off the scalar waves and the energies, and that scalar healing energy taps into that etheric aspect of the DNA. And he said that certain extinct plants were coming back and bugs and everything, so it was tapping into that etheric aspect, and it was causing things to remanifest physically. So you see, like, it's almost like there's a reset switch, like in that's the etheric part of the DNA or the antenna that's not physical. Is what I'm trying to say, and like I don't think like they can ever fully tap into that and destroy that. Like they want us to believe that they can do that, but it won't. They can't truly do it. Even people say when you get a limb cut off, you can feel the ghost limb sometimes. That goes to show that consciousness doesn't go away just because they destroy your body. Like there has to be some way the energy keeps going. All right, well, thanks everybody for watching the questions. I mean, I'll do it live again. I'll try to do them on weekends because I think that's when most people are able to watch them available. But yeah, I got to get off here and accomplish some more stuff, and I got to get some sleep. Bye, everyone.